So hello, everyone. My name is Shiver. I'm an academic program manager in the Office of Undergraduate Research. Welcome to the Undergraduate Research Education Series. This is the last session in the fall, what year is it? 2021 semester. And so hopefully, if you are in Europe, if this is fulfilling an attendance requirement for you, hopefully this is the second one that you've attended, or you know and you plan to, you have time to watch another video to get that attendance fulfilled. If you are logged in real time, joining with us, I just said in real time, but that's what I mean. So if you're joining us in real time, you are logged in to Zoom, counts. I can track your attendance that way. If you are watching this video later and you hope for this to count for your attendance, please fill out the Undergraduate Research Education Series evaluation form. That's on the Education Series page. And that is how I can track your attendance for watching the video later. Okay, so I'm going to start us off with a land acknowledgement, as always, and then we are going to learn about funding grad school from Matthew Plooster. So the American Indian Resource Center leads the way for me to acknowledge that the land that the University of Utah resides on has always been on Indigenous lands, specifically on the lands of the Shoshone, Paiute, Goshute, and Ute tribes. And I encourage you all to think about the Indigenous peoples of whatever land you're on today, if you're not in Salt Lake, if you're at some other remote location. It's also imperative that we acknowledge the enduring relationship that exists between Indigenous peoples and their traditional territories. Through this land acknowledgement, I want to express my personal gratitude and appreciation for their persevering to protect this land for future generations. The erasure of this relationship between Indigenous peoples and their traditional homelands is an insidious form of ongoing colonization, and we need to build our mindfulness of this and of other Indigenous protocols. And of course, in my opinion, the best way to respect Indigenous peoples would be to give the land back. Okay, with that, Matthew Plooster from the grad school talking about funding grad school. Take it away.
Thank you, Shiver, and thank you everyone for joining us today. Let's go ahead and see if I can share my screen, and we'll dive into the presentation. Okay, and as we get started, there were some questions that did come in on the registration, and we'll try to either answer those while I present, as well as anything we don't get to now, we can get to it afterward. And then Shiver will also be watching our chat box. So if you have a question during, go ahead and pop it into the chat box. If it's something that would be most helpful to be answered right then in the moment, she'll stop us and we'll go from there. If not, we will wait until the end and have plenty of time for your questions and comments at that time. So let's go ahead and jump in. As mentioned, I'm Dr. Matthew Plooster with the University of Utah Graduate School's Office of Fellowships and Benefits, and today we're going to chat on funding grad school. And this presentation is going to be a little bit more general. This is for the Office of Undergraduate Research, so there is a higher concentration of students who are in STEM fields or high research fields, but a lot of what we're going to talk about today is going to be applicable whether you are mechanical engineering, chemistry, modern dance, or history. So all across general University of Utah disciplines. So why seek funding? Of course, off the bat, we think funding is money to support what I'm trying to do. Yes, but firstly, let's be honest, seeking funding is oftentimes about the prestige that comes with a grant award. If you are to say that I am a Ford Foundation Fellow, that carries a lot of weight. That carries a lot of gravitas for you as a student, as a grad student, as a researcher, someone who has a very defined trajectory that you want to go down, whether it's going through the professoriate or a more specific research field, such as with a government agency. And prestige opens doors. Being able to say I'm a Ford Fellow can help get collaborators of a higher caliber that you want to work with, help you secure other resources such as other funding. Tuition coverage is also a big part of this. So when we talk about funding, we're going to be talking about just that, funding. This includes large fellowships that include tuition, that include health insurance. We're going to also be including in funding those $200 travel awards that help you go and present your research at a conference. So we're going to take away from the conversation how many digits are following the dollar sign and focus on the concept of funding. But oftentimes tuition support is included, whether it's full tuition or a portion of your tuition being supported. Living support, stipends, or smaller awards that help you pay your rent, put gas in your car to come to school, to go to your lab, to go and perform your research. Research funding, being able to have a budget in some form to pay for supplies, pay for the computer that you need or the software you need. Mentorship opportunities, as I mentioned with the prestige, being a certain kind of fellow or a certain funded in a certain way can open doors for collaborators and mentors, as well as sometimes there are specific opportunities to find. I've mentioned Ford Fellowship. That is one of those organizations that can have mentorship opportunities within the funding agency on top of what you already receive on your campus. And very importantly here, seeking funding helps establish a pattern and a history of seeking funding. As mentioned, if you're interested in research at the graduate level, chances are your trajectory when you look 10, 15, 20 years into the future is working for a government agency, a highly research-based tech area, such as an engineering firm or whatnot, or the professoriate. And in all these areas, going and seeking funding, such as from the National Science Foundation, the National Institute of Health, NASA. These are going to be pivotal parts of your profession moving forward. So establishing that history of funding, that pattern of seeking grants, seeking fellowships, whether successful or unsuccessful, sharpens those skills and makes you more valuable on the job market down the road. So where to find funding? So as you think about grad school, some of you may be thinking about here at the University of Utah. Others may be thinking, I really appreciate my University of Utah experience here, but the grad program I want isn't available here, so I'm going to go to Yale for that. Whatever your goal is, here's a basic framework. On campus is going to be the #1 place that you look for funding. As you apply for graduate programs, particularly when you apply for PhD programs, this is oftentimes a part of that package of receiving an offer to work as a research assistant, teaching assistant, or other assistantship or fellowship opportunities that oftentimes comes with that offer of admission. If you are seeking a particular lab to study in, a particular professor to study under, this is more common on the STEM side than it is on the arts and humanities side. That is going to be also a primary source here. If you're seeking to study under a certain professor, hey, Professor so-and-so, what research opportunities do you have within your lab that can help fund me and fund my tuition? I was a fundraiser for many years, and a saying that we have in fundraising is, if you don't ask, you don't get. So never, ever be hesitant to say professor or department chair, what opportunities are there? Also on campus, depending on your campus structure, there will be opportunities outside your department, outside your program or your college, such as here at the University of Utah. There are opportunities here in the graduate school. There are also opportunities in more auxiliary services, such as the Women's Resource Center, the LGBT Resource Center, the Dream Center, other support services where you might be able to find support. Then there are external agencies such as foundations and professional associations, as well as domestic and foreign governments. Let's talk about the University of Utah for a second. And what we're going to talk about here, I understand that we've got the full range of undergrads here from freshman to senior. So some of this may be eligible for you as an undergraduate as well. University of Utah scholarships are primarily through the Academic Works application. This is where you go to one place to search for scholarship aid. And it's at this address, utah.academicworks.com. You'll find campus-wide opportunities there, emergency opportunities. If you, whatever happens and you need some emergency funding, that is where the university's emergency grant application is, as well as external opportunities. That's a little newer to the University of Utah application, but it will be growing. And all of this is administered by the Office of Scholarships and Financial Aid. Some things to remember: more than one application may be needed. When you go in to complete your application and look for funding, there's the general application that everyone completes. After you hit submit on that, you may be required by your college or your program to complete a secondary application. Then there may be opportunity-specific applications. A lot of opportunities on this campus are based on, okay, you hit these different profile demographic pieces, such as you're studying this or you identify as this. Programs can download that data and find quality recipients that way, as opposed to having to have additional applications. Whereas others will say, yes, I need a copy of your resume. I need you to answer these 3 questions thoroughly with 5-paragraph answers for each of them. And so this is kind of some different pieces from that application. It's very important to pay attention to the details. On the general application, it'll be asking, are you studying in certain areas, or are you a prospective student to certain areas, such as College of Social Work, School of Dentistry, etc. Pay attention to these and click anything that does apply to you. And then also, for example, here on the general application, some scholarships are designed to help students who are parents completing school at the U while raising a family. When these questions come up, they are optional for you to answer, but answering them truthfully can help you secure funding that you didn't realize was available there for you. So in this case, you'd say, yes, I'm a parent, or I'm a single parent, or I'm not a parent at all. The question after that, some scholarships are designed to help individuals with physical challenges or disabilities to maximize opportunities in pursuing a college education. This is where, to your comfort level, you can describe what your response to that would be, whether you do have a physical challenge or a disability, or if you don't. And of course, on behalf of the University of Utah, I will say what is entered into these applications is confidential. Nothing is going to be released publicly that you share here. If ever a point comes where your scholarship essay, you say something there about your background and they want to put it on a website to highlight students who are receiving an award, that department will seek your permission. So discretion is taken with review. You can also then search for opportunities. So under opportunities, you can select hours or external. Hours is going to be what I show you here. And you will go to the search box and enter your keyword. I use the example here of mechanical engineering, and we see these different opportunities. We do see here for the Harold and Lucille Blake Endowed Scholarship, that first result, $0 awards. Don't get too discouraged with 0. Oftentimes 0 means varied, or we know we have something to offer this year. We just don't know how much we've earned off of that investment yet in the endowment pool. So we don't know if this is 1,000 or 2,000 this year. So keep that in mind. 0 does not mean don't apply, but I always advise students, don't focus on the dollar amount, because you want to apply for as much as you feasibly can. Because as I say to students, it is survival of the fittest here. It is a test of perseverance. Sometimes you have to apply for 20 scholarships to get one. And I would see students who apply over every school break, fall break, winter break, spring break, all throughout the summer, 200 applications. They'll come back to school in the fall. They'll have more combined aid than I with a doctorate makes in a year. So there are opportunities when you really put the time and effort into it as much as you're able to. So when you click on these opportunities, you'll see a couple things here. Firstly, you want to look at the description and see what it requires or specifies or prefers. In this case, with the Duke Endowed Scholarship, this is for exceptional undergraduate and graduate students. So graduates, undergrads, as long as you meet the other requirements, such as in an engineering education program, so mechanical engineering, biomedical engineering, chemical engineering, etc., you can apply for this. Deadline is listed, award amount varies. One thing I do want to point out is there is a significant difference in an application between requirement and preference. I see this all the time. An application will say, we prefer a student who is specializing in this, or who has a leadership background. And you think, oh, I don't have what they're looking for, I'm not going to bother. No, absolutely take that chance. If you meet the requirements, such as must be a junior standing or more, must be a grad student, or must be in a research-based field, even if you don't meet the preferences, still apply, because those students who have that preference, they might not have a compelling story or have the research interests that that funding agency wants, whereas you might. You never know what the other applicants in the pool look like, so you don't want to start off comparing yourself to hypotheticals. Some University of Utah application tips here. Apply early as the application opens. So usually around this time of year is when applications start opening, but you want to check often because not everything will open and close at the same time. I have my opportunities through the graduate school open now. They've been open for a few weeks, and I'm going to be closing those at the end of January. Whereas there are other programs that will be opening their 2022, 2023 opportunities in February after I'm said and done. So you want to check often. Make sure you hit submit by the deadline that is specified on the application. And when you go in to build your applications, type in what you need to, upload the documents that you need to, and this is applicable for this system as well as pretty much any online application out there. You can save a draft, and then there's the option to submit. Every year, there's always a student or two who calls my office and says, I uploaded everything, I completed the application, I just did not hit submit. You want to be sure to hit submit by deadline. Be as honest in the narrative questions as you feel comfortable. This is something that has actually been a larger conversation point right now through higher education circles, all the way to mainstream through like New York Times, where students say, I do not want to capitalize on my diversity, or I come from an underprivileged background and I don't want to be that poster child for this program. If you're not comfortable sharing your background, you don't have to. Only share what you are comfortable sharing. And again, this is a discrete confidential application, but even if you don't want 3 people to read it, don't include it. It's all about your comfort level. And then, as mentioned, check frequently, because not all awards are on the same cycle or timeline. So this is one of the opportunities that I administer here for the University of Utah graduate program, and most universities have similar opportunities that you can ask about. So this is the Graduate Research Fellowship. It's open to any master's or doctoral student from any department. You could be from biomedical engineering, you could be from art and art history. Departments here at the University of Utah can endorse up to 2 candidates. So this is where you want to ask questions. Department chair, director of grad studies, grad advisor. I want to be that candidate you endorse. What do we need to do to make that happen? My fellowship is a minimum of $19,500 for fall and spring. So split between the 2 semesters. And oftentimes your department will add to that. They will supplement that with more money. Oftentimes you get tuition benefit where I pay your resident tuition and your mandatory fees. You are eligible for subsidized health insurance, and applications are open right now. So if any of you are applying for grad school next year, you can apply for this. And this, what do fellowships do? Fellowships offer you the opportunity to focus on your research and creative projects while you are studying. Just like if you are seeking teaching assistantship opportunities or research assistantship opportunities, these are meant to enhance your degree program rather than distract. If you are a history student and you are, for 5 years of your PhD working as a TA, that is meant to help you so that when you go off to seek teaching positions at colleges and universities, you've got a lot of teaching experience to help you get your foot in the door. Same with research. Master's student, you're working in a research capacity. That helps you not only have this valuable science degree of some nature, but you have research experience that helps you get into the PhD program you want, or a PhD student into the postdoc that you want, the research agency you want to be with, etc. So the opportunities that you seek, you want them to be an enhancement of your program, not a distraction. Okay, so now we're going to talk about Pivot. Some of you may be familiar with Pivot. Some of you, this may be new. This is an absolutely wonderful tool that the University of Utah Division of Research has provided for us, and it is used across the board at so many colleges and universities out there. And this is not just for students. The professors that you are studying under are likely using Pivot to find funding opportunities as well. So you can find more information at research.utah.edu/pivot, and you can also find it on CIS. So when you go into Pivot, you create a profile and you can add different affiliations such as demographic background, which includes I am a pre-doctoral grad student, or I'm a postdoc, or I'm representing a program rather than me as an individual. Whatever your affiliation is, you'd also put in I'm studying chemistry or physics or whatever your area of study is. And then it helps provide opportunities, match you with different opportunities that are applicable to you. Some search tips here. Use truncation when you are searching. This isn't just for Pivot, but pretty much any type of keyword search that you use. So truncation such as an asterisk, BAS asterisk, will bring up different results such as baseball or basket, etc. Exact phrase searches, which is the double quotes, mouse genome. If you put that in quotations, then anything that comes up will have mouse genome in that exactly. Precedence, this is where you use parentheses with a word limitation in between the 2 terms. So gene within /2 mouse, that means that your results will have no more than 2 words between gene and mouse. It could be just gene mouse or gene word mouse, etc. But it helps you find those different opportunities, especially when you are looking for more finite terms that not every funding agency will be phrasing your research topic the same way. Not all funding agencies are specific. This is very important to consider here. And so you want to use broad terms and then pare that down rather than looking from very specific terms to begin with. So for example here, zebra mussels or something similar, that's pretty darn specific, but you might not find a lot of results. So you would want to start with perhaps biological science, zoology, or maybe just zebra to begin with. Avoid punctuation in your search terms. When funding searches, research searches, such as in research databases through the library, you do not need to be grammatically correct. You do not need to worry about complete sentences or such. You just want the relevant key terms there. No slashes, no commas, no periods, etc. There's one exception to this, and it is very important, and that is the hyphen. And it's not just an exception. It is, if there's a hyphen, you need to make sure you use that. An example here is COVID-19. If you say COVID space 19, you're going to have a lot different results than you would if you said COVID-19. And then searches are case insensitive. You don't need to worry about capitalizing or not capitalizing. It's all going to be searched the same way. And as mentioned about not complete sentences, don't worry about articles, a, and, the, as, etc. So here's some screenshots. We're going to run through a few things here. Searching by funding. So you'd click this on your toolbar, and then you'd enter in your terms for searching. You can also search by funder, but I generally suggest you start with your keywords and then go from there. Unless you have a specific funder that you know is going to be a good match for you, start with all fields. And so I use mechanical engineering as a keyword search here, and we've got 106 results here. And we see some very basic information. Graduate Teaching Fellowship Program from the American Society of Mechanical Engineers. We see that the deadline is February 15th, 2022, and the amount is $10,000. But of course, as I mentioned, don't focus on the amount. Apply for as much as you can. You do definitely want to prioritize deadlines, but also what is required for that application as you prioritize deadlines. So we see the different search results here. You can filter your results down. For example, applicant type. Are you an individual, or are you a government agency or a nonprofit, what have you? You going into graduate programs would most likely want to focus on those awards that are individual, graduate student, or pre-doc. Sometimes you might find some success with individual searches where one is early career, mid-career. There's an undergraduate student opportunity here as well. The early or mid-career, that there are some opportunities. These are definitely more on the exception side, but there are some opportunities where it is a student and a faculty member matched together. So searching under early career or mid-career, that would be like an assistant professor, an associate professor that you may be studying under. You may be able to find some opportunities that way, but I would focus more on graduate student and pre-doc. So when you click on the awards, here's what we see. The funder, the type of funder. This is a professional society or an agency, and it is housed in the United States. That is also another thing that you can whittle your results down. Do you want this to be a government agency? Do you want this to be an American agency, or are you okay with an international funding agency? We see that this award is upper $10,000 or as low as $5,000. Can be made over 1 year or 2 years. It mentions it is for individual grad students or pre-docs. Institution that you are attending needs to be in the United States for the ASME. You do need to have citizenship that is American, and you need to be performing your research or teaching in the United States. You can search by citizenship level, which means that if you are DACA, undocumented, if you are not a resident, you're on a visa as an international student, etc., you can filter your results in that way and search for different opportunities based on your specific demographic status. Again, it's very important to read through the text. We've got here the abstract and the eligibility. So in the abstract, we see this is for outstanding doctoral students in mechanical engineering. Two very important eligibility pieces here. Must be a doctoral student, so no master's students. Must be in mechanical engineering. Chemical engineering would not be applicable here. Now we're getting to the preferences, particularly women and minorities. Okay, so you do not have to be a female identifying student, nor do you have to be a minority identifying student to apply for this. It's just saying that we as the ASME are focused on providing these opportunities, but we are not exclusive to those opportunities there. And while you can search for opportunities that are female specific, female identifying specific, or for certain minorities, you could say, I identify as part of the LGBTQIA community, or I identify as Latinx in your search terms. Well, those are going to be fewer opportunities that show up rather than minority at large. Some organizations will define what a minority is. Some will keep that open and ambiguous and allow you to define how you are part of a minority population through your application. And then the eligibility is fleshed out a little bit more here. They want applicants to be a PhD student with an interest in an academic career. Master's degree or passage of a qualifying exam is required. Qualifying exam, for example, as a graduate student, that is what qualifies you to start your research after you've done your coursework, et cetera, et cetera. Always read through the fine print. And then, of course, at the bottom of your pivot opportunity page, we'll see the deadline. February 15th, 2022. It is confirmed. Pivot has confirmed this is what it is. Until that is confirmed, it will say February anticipated, because historically this application is due in February each year. Your opportunities will include a website, a link to the website of that opportunity. Always go to that website, check for additional restrictions, as well as additional information that will be helpful to you, such as funding restrictions. I say apply for as much as you can because, hey, it's better to turn down an award than not have that award offered to you. And we do run into this on a pretty regular basis. We see here on funding restrictions here that if the awardee is offered more than one major grant or fellowship for the same project for that same period, et cetera, in order to, you must meet XYZ requirement. Or you may not concurrently accept other grants or other fellowships. A lot of NSF and NIH grants require that you be on that grant opportunity and not on other fellowship opportunities concurrently. Does that mean that you should not apply? No, that's not what we're saying here. Couple things to keep in mind here. Let's use the NSF GRFP, which I'll talk about specifically in a moment. That is a 5-year fellowship award, but only 3 years is on funding. So if you are on another award, you can say, okay, this is going to be one of my 2 non-funded years while I'm on this other award. Or this might come up and sit and you need to burn through those 3 years of funding. And you could say to your other opportunity, can I put you on pause while I take this NSF opportunity? Sometimes the option is yes, sometimes it is no, but you want to go in with eyes wide open of what decisions you may or may not need to be making down the road. Some search tips here, a few more. I've said this a lot, but I cannot emphasize this enough. Don't scoff at the lower amount. It really does add up. And a lot of these smaller amounts are going to be for specific things and not unrestricted for whatever expense you might have. Some of these awards, like a $250 award, that might be specifically for travel or research supplies, etc. So you want to look at those as well as you go down the road and look at what you need for your research and your graduate education. So I mentioned the NSF GRFP. This is the National Science Foundation Graduate Research Fellowship Program. It is a fantastic program that if you qualify, and go to nsf-grfp.utah.edu for more info, if you qualify for this program by way of your area of study and citizenship requirements, I would definitely say apply, take that chance. You can apply as an undergrad student if you do for your first year as a master's or doctoral student. And if you are not awarded it, then you can apply one more time as a graduate student. National Science Foundation, like the National Institute of Health, are government redistribution agencies. These are federally funded agencies through the United States. Because of that, you are required to be either a United States citizen or a permanent resident. As you look at other government agencies, foreign governments, for example, you can absolutely be funded by foreign governments. This happens all the time. Some will say you need to have a connection to that country or have some sort of citizenship connection. Others, they're just interested in your research. The NSF GRFP, which is open to students from chemistry and physics to psychology and sociology and anthropology to engineering. One thing that I would say about this, because some of you may be thinking, NSF, NIH, which should I focus on? These are two federal agencies for the same government. They do not want to compete with one another. So if your projects have a healthcare aim, you'll want to go with NIH, because NSF will say, ooh, this is healthcare related, we do not fund that. And vice versa with NIH saying, ooh, this is too sciencey and not health focused, we're pushing it over here. And so we do have students who are studying oncology, for example, at the University of Utah, who they're not necessarily looking at curing cancer, but they're looking at cell biology and how that relates to animals and plants, etc. And so they would definitely qualify for the GRFP. This is $34,000 a year that is paid to you to pay your living expenses over 12 months for 3 years. You get your tuition covered by the University of Utah. You have the option of having us cover your healthcare insurance. And you get $2,500 a year for 3 years for research funds. Great program. Take a look at our website there. And you would absolutely find this on Pivot as well. Some general...
Before we move on, we had 2 questions related to the GRFP.
Yes.
So one, can you apply as an undergrad planning to matriculate, or do you already have to be a graduate student? That might be for both this and other fellowships also.
Absolutely. That is a fantastic question, whoever asked that. The NSF GRFP, like many other opportunities, and this is where reading the fine print is very helpful. You'll read this with GRFP, but you'll oftentimes read this in other opportunities where it states that by September 1st of the award year, which would be next year, by September 1st, you must be accepted into a graduate program. Or taking this a little further, for those that are specifically like your actual research or writing of the dissertation, they may say you must be done with coursework or must have passed your qualifying exams by such and such date. So you're looking ahead at your timeline. You might be a senior right now, or the deadline for next year's awards has passed. It's in October for GRFP, but you might be a junior right now thinking, next year during my senior year, do I want to apply? Do I not? If you're planning on the year after that, 1 year directly following your senior year, going into a graduate program, you probably haven't applied yet to that, but you're planning to, and you're absolutely planning on being accepted into that graduate program, apply. Absolutely, because by September 1st of the following year, you will be matriculated into that PhD in chemistry program, which also then brings up another question. This is one of the advanced questions we received about MS to or bachelor's to master's accelerated programs. Yes, as long as you are matriculated into those graduate programs, you should absolutely feel comfortable applying as long as you meet the specific requirements. And the same thing goes here for how you are approaching your graduate degree. So this is more common on the STEM side, but we do see this across the board. Oftentimes you can start your engineering PhD with just a bachelor's degree. Other programs will say you need to have your master's degree to get into the PhD program. This will depend on your area of study and then, of course, the specific program that you're looking at. The ASME award that we just looked at here, here we are. This opportunity here, it says that not only do you need to be a PhD student, but you need to be a master's student particularly. to seek this opportunity. So sometimes how you enter your grad program may make a difference, might not. GRFP is another thing to consider here with this. If you're going directly into a PhD program, apply. If you're going directly into a master's program, apply. Let's talk about if you're going to be a master's student. This is a 5-year program with 3 years of funding. And so you might be awarded this as a master's student. And let's just say you have a really good opportunity to work in a PI's lab. They're giving you a very generous research assistantship that's going to pay you quite a bit and also give you the experience you really want and really need for your degree. Well, you could say, okay, I'm going to hold off on using my NSF funding because I'm going to take this opportunity now. And then you do that for 2 years, and then you've got 3 years of funding for that PhD that you may apply for down the road. So yes, this will vary by program. And so you want to take a look at the fine print, but generally speaking, as long as you are planning on being a matriculated grad student, whether grad student at large or PhD or master's specified by the program, you can apply as an undergraduate student. And I would definitely say, take those opportunities. NSF GRFP, for example, you can apply as an undergrad student going into the following year, a graduate program. But let's say you don't get it, you're not awarded it. You can apply again as a graduate student for that. But if you apply first as a grad student, you may not have that second chance. So if you know that you're going to go to grad school, you've got an opportunity.
Then the second question about the GRFP specifically, are there diversity-focused GRFP opportunities?
So I would not say that there are diversity specific, such as here's the mainstream GRF and here's a diversity GRF. A lot of programs do that. Whether they are institutional or external agencies, they will have diversity specific opportunities that are required. You are required to have some facet of diversity as usually defined by them. GRFP does not have that kind of 2 different tracks. However, when you take a look at the program solicitation, that's a word or a phrase that you will be hearing more of as you go down the fellowship route. Program solicitation is a document that has all of the requirements to be eligible, all the requirements for applying, and deadlines, contacts, everything in there. And the NSF provides an annual solicitation. They really don't change much year to year. So you can look up the current one and it'd pretty much nearly be accurate for those who might be submitting their application next year. And it will talk about in there diversity. And that is something that you may want to look into. One of the questions that I've had for the program officer is, how are you defining diversity? And because as a gay man, that means one thing to me, but also as a white man identifying as a Caucasian man, that also means something else to me. I may be eligible, I may not. And diversity or minority status, this is going to be defined differently by every agency. Some will keep that gray and vague, others will specify. Gender diversity and racial diversity are the 2 most common areas. And so understanding what they're looking for, whether they have something in mind or they're keeping it open-ended, you want to weave that into your personal statements so that they know where you're coming from, because not every opportunity will have please self-identify your gender, please self-identify your race or whatnot. So NSF GRFP does increasingly look at diversity. So definitely if that is something that you are interested in, definitely take those opportunities. And you can absolutely reach out to me if you want to talk specifically about GRFP and what that might look like for you. Some general fellowship tips that I have for you. Ask questions as you apply to your grad program. This is very, very important. As I mentioned at the beginning, oftentimes an assistantship or a fellowship may be part of your admissions offer to the program, where not only are you offered a seat in the PhD program, but you get an offer of a conditional 3-year assistantship that goes with that. Some do, some don't. Ask those questions as you are applying. And when you are a competitive applicant and you're asking those questions, that also sometimes says to a program, we want this student, but looks like we may need to be bidding against other programs to get that student to come here. And that also brings up a good point of, let's say you are given those offers and you're kind of deciding between Utah State and the University of Utah and University of Washington. Well, you've got these 3 competing offers. One has more money or one has more research opportunities. You can go back to that program and negotiate when it is a campus-based opportunity. Doesn't mean that you'll have positive results from that, but you don't ask, you don't get. So take that chance and ask the question. Start early in your program. You are all doing the 100% great thing of asking these questions and participating in this as an undergrad. You're going to be further ahead when you apply to your master's or PhD program than other people in the program, other applicants to that program, other applicants to those funding sources at that time. So keep up the good work there. Don't scoff at lesser funding. You never know what you're going to need funding for, and also little awards to add up. Start early in preparing the application. Some applications are going to be pretty quick and easy. Never just use one document for all opportunities. We see this all the time where students will forget to change the name of the award on it or such. Always have a fresh document for your uploads. And when you prepare those applications for GRFP, for example, we recommend 6 months that you spend on that application because we want you to go through these drafts. We want you to not be stressed about it. We want you to give yourself the time to feel good about that. And also, when it comes to that application, so many of these fellowship opportunities are going to require a no more than 2-page paper. I was an undergrad once. I know what some of you are thinking, oh, 2 pages. Thank heavens it's not longer. But actually, the shorter it is, the harder it is, because you have to fit point A, B, C, D, E, F, and G into those 2 pages. And so you're going to be going through a lot of drafts of what can I kind of finesse here? What can I wordsmith here to make more fit in there? If there's a contact, an email or a phone number, don't hesitate to ask questions. And that'll be on the funding agency website or on the search page, that contact info. If they specifically say, please don't email or please don't call, follow that. If they do not have a phone number or an email listed, that's also their way of saying, we want you to apply. We don't want you to be calling and asking questions. But if they do put that out there, feel free to call and ask questions. Partner with your faculty or your faculty mentor. So right now, as undergrads, some of you may be thinking, okay, I'm studying chemistry with this great professor here, and I would love to study as a grad student under the same professor. That's great. You may also be thinking, I am studying with this great professor here, but I want to go do grad school elsewhere for whatever reason. You still want to partner, if you can, with that faculty mentor here, because they will help you with your application. They will provide guidance. They will write the letter of recommendation that you so desperately are going to need for that application. Proofread, ask others to review. I see this mistake all the time. Jargon, jargon, jargon. Folks like the NSF, for example, they don't want jargon. They want it to be straightforward. So if handing it off to your brother who is, nothing in the science, if he does not understand what you're trying to say, you need to get rid of some of the technical terms and speak plainly. Always think about with that your greater impact. So if your little brother reading it does not understand how you're making an impact in your community, in your profession, in the study of your area of study, you will need to then make that a little bit more clear. If it's not clear to them, it will not be to your reviewers. And again, avoid technical jargon and practice being brief. Lastly here, my office, the Office of Fellowships and Benefits, I do offer fellowships advising. And with that, I can provide you feedback on your drafts. I can help you create a strategy for yourself for articulating the importance of your project. This is what we call broader impact. Identifying appropriate opportunities for you to pursue, and some strategies for securing recommendation letters. This can be a sensitive topic because you might not feel like you have a good relationship with the person you want to be asking or whatnot. So you can always reach out to me if you want to set up a meeting to come and chat. And I can be reached at fellowships@gradschool.utah.edu. And with that, we've got time for questions.